thinking when this chaos just settles down and maybe I'll have some sense of peace, then I'll be at rest, and then I'll have peace after. It's like a procrastination of peace in your mind due to what's around you. Well, the question today is, what if finding that peace really is changing how we respond to being where we're at, waiting where we're at while that potter's wheel is working? Peace, spiritually, biblically, is not really the absence of chaos. Peace is the presence of Jesus Christ. So you can have peace in chaos. It's amazing. And that's where we enter into chapter 29 today. I'll just read a few verses to start. These are the words of the letter that Jeremiah the prophet sent from Jerusalem to the surviving elders of the exiles and to the priests, the prophets, and all the people whom Nebuchadnezzar had taken into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. So now they're in a different location, some of them. And that peace, well, it also depends on how you're living and how you're dealing with things where you are geographically, physically. And so last week we saw that potter's wheel imagery. We saw the scene you were reminded of today. Jeremiah saw God shaping a people into these vessels of honor as they submit to his hands. But why are they vessels? Why are we vessels? Not to be filled with ourselves and our purposes and our plans. We're vessels to be poured out, just like Jesus. And God transforms us. This is a process that we're in. Right where we're at, right here, presently. And he does that to live out a mission that we're called to right where we are. And so many wait for something else before they start. Many of you perhaps struggle with procrastination. And this is the most dangerous kind of procrastination there is. And Jesus is the only way that we can get through it, by being present. And God wants to take us and transform us and shape us no matter where we are, no matter what situation we're in, no matter what age we are. Even if we are not where we would like to be in our lives. So for this letter, by this dating, 597 BC, I think we're around. So Babylon had now taken over Judah. They're there. Temple isn't destroyed yet. Under Nebuchadnezzar. And soon he's going to wipe out Jerusalem and the temple is going to be destroyed. But the Babylonian Empire, great strategic empire, was wise. So they took the middle and the upper class first. They took the skilled laborers first. They left the farmers, sorry guys, and the poor people and the unskilled laborers back. And that was strategic. They're trying to prevent a rebellion while still gaining support. Babylon, I think there's a map up there, guys, if it's, just put the slide up. Babylon, just think where modern day Iraq is today. So the Jews lost their homes, they lost their land, they lost the temple now, a place to worship. Sense of identity is totally damaged. If you were just deported from your country, and maybe some of you have been, if this isn't your country, it's challenging on your heart to not be where you are and be forced somewhere else. So they're strangers in a foreign land. Now, they're in exile, but they're not suffering. This is the first wave of deportation. They're not suffering like building clay bricks and being in forced labor. They have privileges under this Babylonian rule. There are benefits, which is really just a way to control them, of course. They had land, they had some land, they had freedom of religion, they could worship without a temple. They could have homes, they could have families, they could, sit in their backyard, but they weren't really free. I think of those, for some reason I think of those Nuketown pictures, and where is it, like Arizona or something, where the people, it's like fake plastic people, and they're using it to test nuclear weapons, and they look all happy and like everything's fine, but danger's coming, right? So it's not what it seems. They're in a place, Mesopotamia, Babylon, where I'm not going to do a whole study on it, even though I'm sure many of you would be excited by it. You could look it up, but they worshipped a lot of gods, a lot of false gods, that still, the beliefs in some of these gods, they carry on into our modern day easily, spiritually. You have like Ishtar and goodness. If you want to go off on a rabbit trail, I don't suggest going to look that up. But there's the gate of Ishtar that they rebuilt, I think. So, and there's the ruins, actually, of Babylon. So this is real. We're talking about real history here. This all happened, this empire that was taking over. But the Jews, they're deported, living amongst all this. People have shrines in their homes, and they're doing kind of magic stuff, sorcery, worshiping different gods for different reasons, totally against their beliefs. It would be like you as a modern day Christian living in a city of devil worshipers, just as a believer. Imagine how you would have felt, even though you have privileges. And Babylon was in control. Jews could not enter into political leadership except you'd have to be really elite. You'd have to be somebody like Daniel, who at this time is in the courts and administration, but this is written to the exiles. So God gives the exiles specific instructions to settle down in the midst of all this and live out their lives for 70 years. They're not given swords to conquer or tear down the evil statues that are surrounding them. They weren't told to go escape and flee and run to Jerusalem and protect the temple before it's destroyed. This is what God tells them. Build houses and live in them. Plant gardens and eat their produce. Take wives and have sons and daughters. Take wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there and do not decrease, but seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile. And pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. This is radical. Welfare, prosperity, peace, shalom, that's the word. They're supposed to build a home and seek the welfare of Babylon, this empire that's insane in what they are worshiping and what they believe compared to the one true God of Israel. So it sounds crazy, but it all foreshadows Jesus. It's all pointing to Jesus. And exactly how we are to live in these vessels and in these plans that God has for us today. For us to care, like really care for our enemies and really love even the people in a Babylonian system, even the rulers of a Babylonian system that's around us now. So that's flipping expectations. And it's been called by many this upside-down kingdom. And yeah, that's what it is, because that's not how we expect things to go. How we respond to those who are in power over us. And the reality is, we are in exile. We are in exile. All believers are, all over the world. God's purpose does not stop because we are in exile. And I mean spiritually. We are spiritually in it. We are not at home with the Lord fully. We are in a place where we do not technically belong. And when you come to Christ, welcome to exile, basically. 1 Peter talks about that, chapter 2, verse 11. Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passions of the flesh, which wage war against your soul. Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation. So this letter that Jeremiah is speaking to the exiles, well, it does a lot of things, but it reminds them that God is the one who sent them into exile. In verse 4, thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, to all the exiles whom I have sent into exile. So that's a great reminder, because they could trust God no matter what. Even though they were there, technically because of their own rebellion, right? This is judgment. This is judgment, and this is God using that to bless and give this opportunity for his people to mature. That's just like humanity. We have been exiled since the garden, if you think about it. And instead of them escaping back to Jerusalem, which is going to be destroyed anyway very soon, they were supposed to learn what it's like to worship outside of a place where my temple's there, that's where I go to worship God. Now the Lord is going to teach them. It's like a shadow of Jesus talking about we're going to worship him in spirit and truth, right? When he's talking to the Samaritan women. So they're already learning the presence of God is not restricted to a temple or a church or a holy place that we see as holy, and it's pointing to Jesus. Serving God can happen in any country. It can happen in any circumstance. It can happen in a jail cell. For those of us who have ever been in jail, you know that, I hope. Or it can happen if you fall in like a pit, right? I don't know if it was the 80s or 90s. There's been many kids who have fallen in pits, right? That must be a horrible feeling. I can't imagine. Everyone's watching the news like, oh my gosh, you got to get him out. And you can worship God in a situation like that. When you're looking at your loved one and they may be taking their last breaths, when it's after they've taken their last breaths and you're at a funeral now, while you're in uncertainty, whatever it is. Any circumstance. And then that also means in any place where we land or where we live or in any neighborhood that we're at or any people that we're around, even if they're people who are not yet transformed into who they're supposed to be because they're being rebellious. Even people who influence for evil and seek to do harm, because Babylon wanted control. Very wise, evil leaders, strategic to gain control. And with Jesus, we're supposed to be even more strategic. But then we do that with a pure heart in a loving way. So they were not supposed to pray for Babylon to burn. Lord, get us out of here, smite our enemies, and get us out of here. They were supposed to pray for them to prosper. And that is difficult today. It's been difficult since then, but I mean, today people are ready to just kill leaders for before seeking their good or seeking their peace. Westerners, we talk smack about foreign countries, right? You know those conversations. I don't have to go into detail. We talk smack about certain places as if, well, that's the Antichrist, you know. Oh, yeah, I'll raise my hand first. I've been guilty of being in those conversations, getting wrapped up in that. My goodness. Lord, I just forgot about you for a minute. I'm sorry. And we do that, and we forget that we have a plank in our eye. 1 Timothy 2, first of all, then I urge that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgivings be made for all people, for kings and all who are in high positions, that we may lead a peaceful and quiet life, godly and dignified in every way. Wow, we need a lot of help with that. The words of Jesus, Matthew 5:43, you have heard it said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. As exiles in a spiritual Babylon, we are to do the same. Live peaceable, live quiet lives. That means like not causing a ruckus. Loving your neighbor, loving your enemy, blessing those who curse you, right? Rendering to Caesar what's due to Caesar. These are the things that Jesus did. And we can't just say, oh, well, I get what you're saying, Pastor, but I'm not in that process of, or a maturity level in my sanctification yet. And I'll say, well, can you try? Can we try together? Because this is not like even one cherry-picked verse. This is the gospel. This is how we are to live in the midst of Babylon as exiles. Didn't Jesus seek our good even when we rebelled against him as human beings? Didn't he say to his enemies when his own people helped crucify him, he said, Father, forgive them, they don't know what they do? He did what is so hard for us to do, and this is what God was teaching the Jews in Babylon. So you can say this is what that process feels like or looks like of being remade into proper godly pottery. Because it takes this serious work in our hearts. You can't play church and go through this kind of work. It's hard. It is difficult to lay aside your bitterness and your hatred and the things in your mind that you have that just stir you up to hate people for whatever reason that you deem them as unacceptable to be in your, I was going to say your kingdom, as if it's your kingdom, because that's what it's like. It's like you've just decided to be something that Jesus doesn't want you to be, because it's his kingdom. To see past others' sins and sit with them at a table, a real table, like a dinner table, until they become part of the family of God. Sharing the gospel by living at peace and really praying for them. And then when you sense, this is really hard, I'm having trouble praying for this person, rather than give up, you ask God to change your heart instead. And there's a potter saying, oh, here we go, let's do this. I've been waiting for you to be willing. And you're doing all this all while in Babylon, so that means you have to resist the temptations around as well. Because there's temptations there to pull you astray, and they're evil temptations. This is difficult because rebelling against evil just by wiping people out, that's easy. Oh yeah, that's great. That sounds messed up, but we're just going to eliminate the evil people in the world, and then we'll make it a Christian world. That sounds like some radical extremist things that we don't want to get into this morning and study history. As if those people are really the source of the evil they're being influenced by. As if that's how we fight our battles. The Bible doesn't say that. It's harder, Christian. It's harder to resist evil while you're living in the midst of it, rather than continually trying to take it into your own hands and wipe it out or escape and flee from it. Now, we all have a sense of longing like the Jews did, because they had a sense of longing to be back in Jerusalem, to be back near the temple, to be with their land and their people, of course. And we have a sense of longing too now in Christ that you didn't have before. You have a sense of longing to be with your people. And who is your people? It's all who will call upon the name of the Lord. And you see this, it's coming around full circle now. So that would mean that your enemy has the potential to be someone who will call upon the name of the Lord and be in your family and be someone that you long to be with. Wow. So while the Jews wanted to return home, when that longing comes, right there is where the danger came for them while they were living in Babylon, because there were false prophets just like there are today. And in verses 8 through 9, we see that. He says, "Do not let your prophets and your diviners who are among you deceive you, and do not listen to the dreams that they dream, for it is a lie that they are prophesying to you in my name. I did not send them, declares the Lord." And this warning speaks to our tendency now, with shorter attention spans and less patience in general, our tendency to go after quick fixes and believe packaged, attractive messages about instant relief. This is what the false prophets were doing at that time. They were telling them, this exile is going to end very quickly. Okay, don't worry about it. Strengthen up, get ready, get suited up, because it's going to be over soon. Prosperity's coming quickly. When in reality, the Bible teaches us what real faith means: enduring, patience, long-suffering, enduring hardship rather than seeking our comfort all the time. This is how Jesus trained the disciples. Today, just like today, false preachers were promising them this prosperity and wealth now. That was the prosperity gospel back then. When in reality, they had 70 years. 70 years. That is close to, I'm not saying very close, possibly to a lifetime here. The most popular message to people in exile and dire straits, this is us today. The most popular most popular message when we're in exile is one that offers instant relief, or you have a time frame. That's going to be popular. If we wanted this church packed, hey, the things that I could do to give people a promise of instant relief, and you don't have to walk through hardship, because your breakthrough, it's coming this afternoon, and it's going to be in your bank account. In fact, your healing, as I speak it will come right now, because God doesn't even want you to experience any pain and sickness and suffering in this life at all. It's not hard. But when you know the truth of the gospel and what Jesus did for us, you know that's not the case, and it lessens the truth that he brought to the world. So Jeremiah is like to all these false prophets, don't buy into it, guys. You're going to be here a while. 70 years, let's see, if it was around my age, I'm somewhere in my mid-40s. 70 years, I think 64, I have to count my hands, forgive me. Yeah, I got 30 years, maybe 30, 40 years, if the Lord wills. I wouldn't see that. My kids would. They'd see it. So some of their kids would never even see a return to their homeland. That's a lot of patience. So what they had to do is focus on a new generation and get it off of themselves. You know what? It doesn't matter if we see. It doesn't matter if we go back. What matters is how we teach our kids that there's still hope and how we influence those around us. So they laid aside their urge to escape. And Matthew 24:23, Jesus says, then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe it, for false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. So here, it's interesting. We have the elect Jews in Babylon being promised, hey, look, here's relief. Here's your Messiah coming. Many today, ladies and gentlemen, are still telling Christians the rapture is coming very soon. It's on the way. Relief is on the way. I mean, look at the signs. Look at the news. It looks really bad. And I'm raising my hand. I've fallen into the same trap. And yeah, he's got to be coming soon. Okay, well, let's get ready then, because we only have to think about ourselves. We're going to stock up, load up, get ready. Jesus said what? He said, no one knows the day or the hour. Just be where you are and be ready here in my presence, basically. Don't look at signs in the sky or the news and the things that are going on in the world. You can be aware of them, but when they consume you, to give you that sense of escapism, it becomes an obsession, and you're just thinking about going to a place when he teaches us to be in a presence. And that's regardless of what place we are living in. It's how we look instead at the people around us. These people, these precious people that we are. We're precious. Living people, and the people living even next door to you, right? Or the people working with you at your job. I think of some of your workplaces here and how that has been such a powerful ministry. And how their lives have been changed, regardless if they come to this church or not. They've given their lives over to Christ. Places like UPS and Rosenboom, and there's others, but man, God is just awesome. That's because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in exile, even though you feel like you're not doing very well. Point people to the sign that cannot be seen by them except the way that you represent Jesus on earth. And that's right here, because God is with you right here. So our time to come out of exile, it's not numbered in measurable, as I measure time. It's not measured like that. It's not 70 years. It's going to be just when the Lord decides. We don't get to know. That's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm really okay with that. It's funny because Jeremiah, there's in between this and the previous chapters, going back to 1, there's a point where he gets so frustrated. He's like, I curse the day I was born. He just wanted to go. He fell into this too. So this is a man speaking who has also been frustrated before. This encouragement comes from that same man, and it's misunderstood often. I'm giving pause because it's such a famous verse. that we have to be careful with. Starting in verse 10. For thus says the Lord, when 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will visit you. And I will fulfill to you my promise and bring you back to this place. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. So you see with the 70 how that does not mean prosperity now. Can you have prosperity now? Sure. God can do anything. He does it responsibly because he's God, though. You see how you can apply it to your life streams when you're in this really bad situation, and you can just speak that verse into anything and say, you know what? No, you may have to wait, is the point. It's spiritual prosperity, not physical prosperity. It's welfare. It's that shalom. It's a wholeness of heart. It's a wholeness of heart that, for me, I know in my heart, subjective but a shared experience, even when I have anxiety or even when my mind affects me, I can still have peace in chaos. It's incredible. I can look back and say, well, yeah, that was hard, but I still had this peace, right? You really don't think of it till you're out of it, because in the midst of it, you're like, oh my goodness, everything's falling apart. Spiritual prosperity. That's what we're promised. And the future for us, it's not in time, it's in eternity. 70 years for them was literal. And it came true exactly as God said. But for us, the principle is about completion. Completion, not your convenience. We can't make God and the gospel and all of this convenient, because he wants to complete us. Why do we give things that are convenient? Because we want to, make it easier. And even sometimes you think it could be out of a good heart, but there's things that we learn in the completing process that you're not going to learn when it's found at the 7-Eleven, spiritually speaking. You know what I mean? Well, we don't have 7, Casey's, whatever. Whatever complete time is required for refining of all believers and who will be believers, that's when God will decide to do what God does. He wills and he decides, and Jesus will return. And in the meantime, we shine in this refinement process. I found a rhyme in it, and I was like, this might be dumb, but maybe it'll help you remember. We shine when we refine, okay? Lights in dark places, right? In dark places, instead of running from dark places and trying to fight darkness with our own weapons. 2 Corinthians 10:4, for the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but they have divine power to destroy strongholds. That's pretty powerful. It's divine. And then we overcome evil with good. Romans 12:21, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So God's plans for you are God's plans for all people. While we live in a Babylonian system, yes, it's true, connected across the globe by corruption and these kingdoms with lowercase k's that are not interested in God, but they're interested in power and wealth, control. While we're here, he wants to use your life and your life and your life and your life, all of our lives, our families, and our time to teach us the heart of our King Jesus. And this is his heart, to truly love our neighbor, to truly love our neighbor, to truly love our neighbor. We say it so much we take it for granted. What that really means. That means you really, really, really love them. You don't just tolerate them. To forgive your enemies. Not kind of forgive and then fantasize about their destruction in the parenthetical of your own house behind closed doors. To be strong enough to live in the world while not being of the world. Because we take those verses out, we take them out in our, we want good doctrine and we want to be sound and okay, well, I can't have any fellowship with evil, so I need to separate and I need to be totally just not present with anything evil. And when I get everything evil out of my life, including people, then I'm going to be holy and I will have sanctified myself. And I'm basically worshiping what has now become my own God. Think about it. See, it's so much more difficult to be in the midst of it and not be influenced by it. And the reason it's difficult is because you need help from on high and you need help from the Holy Spirit rather than being self-dependent on your own self-righteousness and religiosity. And that's exactly what Jesus was rebuking the Pharisees constantly about. And also to be content in all circumstances and all places. No matter where you are. So we overcome by being these ambassadors that the New Testament calls us to be, tells us about in detail, it's non-negotiable, it's right there. Representatives of God's goodness in the midst of evil, not separate from it. That's God's plans for you today. So you're going to love people. We're going to love people until they see Jesus. Takes a lot of patience. It's a lot of risk for us. We're going to get hurt. Yeah, exactly. We might get taken advantage of. Yep. They might hurt us, like physically, or steal from us, or I don't know what's going to happen. Guess you got to depend on God. And pray for them instead of cursing them. I would give you examples of all the times I've prayed for my enemies in my mind, the real ones who are really saying things and then the ones who I thought were. But that's not going to help you much. And in reality, I don't think it matters because this is exactly what Jesus did. He prayed for us. So when he returns to gather, that's Jeremiah 29:13, he's going to be gathering a lot more people. That's the whole point. And that's people, the greatest wealth of all. That's your treasure, is the souls of people. And God is going to carry out his plans, not ours. And he's going to do it his way, not ours. All these kingdoms will fall. Every single one will promise you something. It's been this way since the beginning of any kingdoms in general. Egypt promised protection, but what happened? They enslaved Israel. Babylon promised, security. You got land, you got stuff, you're good. But they destroyed Jerusalem. How about Rome? Pax Romana, they promised peace. Killed Jesus on a cross. Doesn't sound very peaceful. America, yes, promises freedom and prosperity, but America can't save my soul. No nation can, only Jesus can. So that frees me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter what nation I'm in. If Jesus doesn't rule our hearts while we live in Babylon, this is our end, ladies and gentlemen. This is a warning for the false prophets, and bringing it to today, it gives us the chance to be deceived in a direct way that will affect our relationship with God. because we come to believe that some kind of victory in the physical, maybe a political victory or whatever it is going to equal a spiritual victory. Or we believe that comfort and wealth and health and prosperity is equal to God's blessing. Or we believe that instant relief is faithfulness because I'm relieved right now. That's a false security, because the word says, as an example, while people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly. It keeps us spiritually immature. And I think that's probably the worst part of all, because we never learn to love our enemies. We never learn how to live in contentment with what we have, so much so that something has changed, and we're no longer giving more because we think that we need to do that to be better. We're giving more because there's been a change in our hearts, and we really are content with less. Like, really. And then we learn how to die to ourselves, and you don't get to do that when you're deceived. It's hard. We end up, like Hebrews talks about, still drinking milk and not eating solid food. So we have to wait for his plans to come to pass. And clearly we're waiting this morning. I was telling Alyssa in there, she doesn't see my sermon notes or anything. And we started talking about when we all get to heaven, and then where were we next? We were here in his presence right after the blood, remembering, and then we're waiting. And guess what? We're still waiting. We still have hope in a future, but we're here waiting, and we do have his presence, and we do have a taste of heaven here on earth. And while we do that, we're fruitful where we are. We're building a household. We're doing what God told Israel to do in the midst of Babylon. Build a household, okay. All right, well, I don't know about anybody else, but we're done having kids, all right, unless it's a miracle. There's knots that have been tied that can't be untied. You know what? If I face anything for what I just said, this is just a reality. So it's done, unless, of course. But that kind of household, no. Planting seeds of his word by bearing fruit of his spirit, multiplication is the kingdom. That's making disciples. That's when people's lives are changed. And then we're seeking shalom. You don't have to get it tattooed on you with the cool Hebrew lettering. Just you're seeking out for other people's good. Even those who have annoyed you in the past, because God is going to teach you how to love over being annoyed, and it's the most radical transformation you could ever imagine. In exile in Babylon, we have hope this morning, and we proclaim that to our children, to these young ones. We're raising them up. We're not focused on, happening in my generation. You know, I've probably done that before. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to try not to. I better be careful, because I am fallen too, and I fall into mistakes. But I don't want to just think about us escaping, about us being raptured. I want to think about the generations of my kids and our community's kids, and becoming leaders for the kingdom in all spheres, in all places, in all nations, and reaching other people. While God gives us precious time to wait and see more become people who are going to enter into the promised land that they once didn't think they ever belonged to. Adopted from Babylon to Zion in the process. Isn't that awesome? Even if you never see a rapture, even if you never escape your problems this morning, even if persecution increases in your lifetime, and if your children don't see relief this morning, just settle down is what Jeremiah was saying. And build the kingdom is what Jesus said. We're building this home, and we have to trust his plans for us this morning. Would you bow your heads? Close your eyes, because we're focusing on spiritual, not physical. And it's spiritual prosperity. Listen, through refining fire. spiritual prosperity through refining fire, eternal future through your present faithfulness. And it's hope that doesn't depend on what you have in the fridge at home, the debt collector's envelopes that are piled up, the bills that you're unable to pay, the car that you don't have, the job that you don't have, the place that you're not at, the house that you don't have. You fill in the blanks. Relationship, it doesn't depend on earthly comfort. It's hope in Jesus Christ. Lord, I thank you that